but what lesson there was in it for me. Because I can't understand why people say nasty things. I just don't understand.
Well, why do they say nasty things? I mean, what happens is they're not feeling very good in themselves. So they're in what the Course would call the ego, in this separate sense of self. They're feeling wounded, they're feeling vulnerable. And then the ego strategy is to attack. Right? So I'm not feeling very good, so I'm going to attack someone else, because if I do that, I feel temporarily better.
You're offloading it onto them, but then why is it a lesson for the other person?
Well, because in you, there must be also that we've all got that thought system in us. We wouldn't be here if we didn't. So that thought system of anger and then projection, that's what runs the world. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have that element in our minds, if we didn't have the ego. You couldn't be human if you didn't have the ego. So it's a lesson in that you can then become aware of this and go, okay, so if this person is just my mirror, they are just showing me, they're a manifestation of this ego thought system, of fear, anger, attack. I don't like it. It's horrible. Look at what it does. It's hurtful. It hurts me. So I can choose to respond in kind. I can go, right, I'm going to be angry too. And then we just be angry with each other and we attack each other and we fight. And that's kind of humanity's story. Or we go, okay, like, let's just look a little bit deeper than this. Let's say, okay, if this is showing me an aspect of myself, I actually need to be grateful for that. Can you see that?
So
because it's showing me.
You always need to reflect when somebody your initial response has to be to reflect.
Yeah, if you can just pause. You know, the ego always speaks first and it speaks loudest. So initially someone attacks you, your natural reaction is, right, you know, defend. I'm going to defend myself, and I defend myself by, well, either I'm going to run away, it's a fight or flight response, or I'm going to attack you back, right? But, you know, history has told us, and your experience, that doesn't really work. Where does it lead you? It leads you into conflict, it leads you into pain, suffering, and there's no way out. You just get stuck in conflict, and it's just horrible. So Jesus is proposing in this course, he's proposing a way out. He's saying, look, if you can really see this, if you can listen to my teaching here, which is actually really simple. It's not actually a difficult teaching. It's just difficult because it goes so against our conditioning and our programming. We're not used to thinking this way. You know, life doesn't, we're not conditioned, we haven't been brought up to think, oh, well, yeah, just forgive, let everyone just do whatever they want. No, you've got to take a stand. You've got to be like, fight for your rights. You've got to, and the course is proposing a different, hi Hazel. So this is Linda
Nadine.
and Nadine.
Nadine.
Yeah. And have you come across the course before?
No, but this talks to, listen and read.
Done,
it's just
spiritual. And this is Hazel and Maria. Yeah.
I like an analogy because of Hazel. The forgiveness thing. It's like I heard a brilliant analogy.
Yeah.
It's like a snake that bites you.
Yeah.
And you can't unbite the snake. The venom is behind can poison you to death.
Yeah.
Or
you can take the anti-venom, and the anti-venom is forgiveness.
So it's all about not allowing that venom to poison you.
Yeah. And it's not easy.
That I understand very well.
It requires a lot of mental discipline and training, which is what the course is trying to teach us. It's not a difficult idea, but
it just goes against nature.
There's a part of us that doesn't want to do that, because if you do that, the ego, if you do that, and you really let go and you say, I'm just going to forgive and I'm just going to love, then where's your identity? Who are you? See, like, what creates the boundary between you and another person? Well, all these things: anger, any form of separation. So anger, fear, guilt, revenge, jealousy, hatred, attack, all these things. That creates a separation, doesn't it? So now, who would I be if I didn't have someone else who is opposite to me, who is opposing me? You know? That's why we need enemies. That's why the ego has to have enemies, because who would I be without an enemy? That's why, and we see this played out not just on a personal, we see it played out on an international level.
And so many people say, I stand up for myself.
Yeah. Well, there's the self. The self.
Yeah.
What self? well, it must be a little self. It must be a self that views itself as separate, as different, as special, as alone. And now that self is going to be at war with other selves, with other little selves who equally want to establish their identity. And the only way you do that is by having some kind of opposite, by having someone or something who's different from you. And you can see that. Now you react to that. And there's that. It doesn't make us happy, but it gives us an identity. And so it's actually really profound. I mean, the course, the more you get into it, you go, holy, excuse my French, holy shit, this is the whole thing. It's so logical. You basically deconstruct piece by piece the whole illusion we've constructed. We're not, he's not holding back anything. He's saying this whole dream world you're in is created by this false idea of being separate. But you can actually be separate from all it is, from oneness, from God, from all beingness, from whatever you want to call that. But you can actually be separate from
it's like that, right? Because if you're not connected to everything alive, then you're dead.
Well, what he says is basically this is kind of a living death. Because we're not really alive here. We're sort of playing we're alive. There's kind of
even worse.
It's a false life. We're going through this world, and we go from birth to death. It's a pretty short interval. Even if you live 80, 90, 100 years, that's not a long time in all of time. So we have these little lives, and we play out these ego ideas and dreams and so on. And the Course is saying, look, there's something way beyond this. There's something like, where did it all come from? How did this all originate? And it gives us the answer. So he's saying, look, it all started off. There's only perfect oneness. That's the ultimate truth. But there was this idea of separation that came in. So at some point, for whatever reason, and this is what we struggle to understand here, it's like at some point the mind, because there's only one mind, had a thought, and it said, well, what if I could be separate? What if actually there was something other than this transcendent allness, this perfect oneness, which the Course calls God? And that idea is the ego. That idea was the beginning of the ego. It's a thought of something else, of something other than oneness. The problem was we believed that idea. We kind of went, that's interesting. We've been perfect oneness for all eternity. Now there's another experience this offers us. Cool. So we follow the ego. We go, great, give me what does this offer me? This offers me an adventure. It offers me a different experience. It offers me a separate identity. I can be special, right? The Luciferic idea, Lucifer sort of fell from the light. It's just saying that Lucifer wanted to be special. Lucifer wanted to be separate individual from God and set up his own little idea and kingdom. And it's just, these are all ideas in the mind, so these myths and things like this, they point to these metaphysical ideas of, okay, so now there's an idea of specialness. I could be special. I think I'd like to be special. And so now I follow the track of that thought system. Okay, so now there's the idea that I'm special, I'm individual, I'm unique. Oh, this is pretty cool. So I could have a different experience from all it is. I could have a different experience from love. Okay. But now the problem starts, because from there we now feel fear. We now feel that we've somehow been separated from our source, and we feel guilty for that. We feel like we've done the worst possible thing. We've separated from love. So we on some level deserve to be punished. Yeah. So now you get the thought system of guilt, sin, that I've done this terrible, horrible thing, and God is going to come and punish me. Something is going to come and get me. Whatever that. Actually, that's just the ego. It's just a false idea, but we project that onto God. We say, this God is going to come and get me and destroy me. And so now I have this tremendous fear of death, of being destroyed. And that's the ego's identity, right? Because it's not real. So it's always going to be in fear. It's always going to have an underlying guilt. It's always going to have the idea that it's sinful because it's done this horrible thing, separating from all that is, from love. And now the ego says, okay, well, I've got a plan. I will create a place where you can run away from God, where you can be separate, you can be apart. God can't find you there. And so now it goes and it projects this out in one massive metaphysical disaster, an explosion of thought, which is all energy is, so projected thought. And that created what we know as this universe, this physical universe, right? Where did it come from? Well, they've kind of established that there was one moment called the Big Bang, where it all exploded, and it's been expanding ever since. And so the Course is saying that moment was the moment of separation. That moment was the moment when the mind decided that it was going to tear itself away from oneness and go into this alternate reality, and create this dream of being separate, where it could hide away from God, where guilt and fear and sin would always be part of the dream, because you can't. That was how the dream originated. And love would be excluded. Love wouldn't be there, because we didn't want love. We wanted to hide away from love. So we came to a material world where apparently we couldn't find love. And the journey, return to love, is to say, hang on, what's this all about? Why are we really here? What are we really doing here? Now we apparently separated into billions of fragmented pieces. There's billions of humans, and there's multiple billions and trillions of other life forms, and they apparently all have a separate consciousness. Or do they really? We think, because we see the form, we see, separate bodies, and we see separate animals and plants. But is that true? And what the Course is saying is it's not true. Ultimately, the idea of separation, everything that is created, miscreated, is not true, because the original thought from which it all came is not true. That you can be separate from love, that you can be separate from all that is, from the divine source, the creator. You can't really, because that's where life comes from. So now we're living in this duality where we've got these two ideas going on, and they're always at war with each other. There's a friction. Am I one? Am I not one? Am I love? Am I not love? And we vacillate. We go from one to the other. It's like, one moment we think, oh yeah, I'm so connected. All it is in an environment like this is going to be great. And then you go tomorrow to your job or whatever, and someone, you get an email, it's not very nice, and suddenly up comes all that separation, and all that fear, and that guilt, and that anxiety, and so on. And so the Course is saying, look, there's only one way to resolve the dilemma. You're never going to resolve the dilemma by going, both of these are real, which people have tried. People have tried this for centuries. Lots of spiritual teachings go, well, it's all it is, and everything's okay, and there's no right or wrong. And okay, so then love and not love are both real. Okay, so now God's insane. So how do we make any decisions? If you go that route, how do you make a decision? Okay, so then it's equally valid to go and attack and murder people as to go and love and help them. Do you see what I mean? You can't, because both can't be true. They're completely opposite ideas, thought systems. They lead to opposite results. So you have to make a choice, and that's what the Course is saying. You have to choose ultimately between love and what he calls fear, or the ego. And the Course is really just giving you in an in-depth analysis of both of these thought systems and saying, look, there they are, and in every situation you've got a choice, because that's the way the world works. There's always love that hasn't gone away, but in your awareness, you've forgotten it. And so now, if you listen to this other voice that thinks that you are separate from love, you're going to do some not very nice things to yourself and to others. You're going to hurt people, you're going to hurt yourself, and that cycle will continue until you wake up and go, there's only one choice here. I have to let this go. I have to forgive, and I have to find love again in my heart, and I have to try and extend that to other people. Because if I extend that and I give people love, then what am I saying? I'm saying love is real. Love is my reality. Love is the only thing I believe in. If I extend guilt by blaming people, by attacking them, and hating them and fearing them and projecting all that stuff, what am I saying? Well, I'm saying that's real for me. And this is how we create our realities. And you see that played out, on every level. Some people, people make wrong choices all the time. You see it in the news. Someone's murdered someone, someone's killed someone. Well, that's just a bad choice. Someone's supposed to be joining us online. See if she joins us. No, she's not. Okay, never mind. So like in a nutshell, that's a basic. So it's not rocket science. It's not a difficult teaching. In fact, he says it's a very simple course, but it's so radical. It's like what he's saying undoes the whole thing, the whole human dream, the illusion, your life as a human being, the world. That it's not an easy overnight process. Because it's levels and levels and levels, and you know, the more you, I mean, I'm 13 years into it, and it's still like I read it every day, and it's still like, it's still profound. It's still meaningful.
With our big life,
Huh?
with our long life, what would we say? Because we have stored lots of knowledge. But you know, the biggest challenge is that when you choose love, then often the resistance comes up.
Yeah.
And then people battle with, initially when you make that shift, you get a lot of resistance.
Because not everyone is in the same vibration. They're not there themselves.
It's showing you that they have actually chosen that. When this other side comes up, they saw that residue that they need to work through.
Yeah.
And then they go right back into that, the ego, and then that perpetuates, and they say, no, it's a load of rubbish. Doesn't work. That's my experience.
Yeah. You got to be extremely persistent with this and committed, because if you start shifting and you start really going into love, there's this other force which is extremely powerful. I mean, look at what it did. Okay, so all of this was created or miscreated in the course's language by this other thought of the ego, of something else other than love. So, okay, you know, I mean, in reality, it's not really true. It's not permanent, and love is more powerful. But while we're in the body and while we're living in this domain, it appears to have a lot of power, right? And you feel that. It's like you start going into this stuff and you feel that because really the resistance is in you.
Yeah.
It's just being mirrored by other people and events. It's like, you know, resistance. But actually, what's happening is your own ego is fighting a battle for its own survival. So it's going, okay, so the only way I'm gonna hang in here is I'm gonna use the external world. I'm gonna use other people and circumstances to try and convince you that I'm right. I'm gonna show you that actually there's something other than love. Boom, 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 and then it keeps coming up. And the course is saying, okay, great, bring it on, because the more the ego shows you its face, the more the ego shows you the resistance and it shows you everything that's not love, the more you can make the choice to undo it, to let it go, because it reveals itself. If it doesn't reveal itself, how can you let it go? So the ego's strategy of projection, okay, this is all projection. We've projected out of our minds. We've literally gone out of our minds. Okay, so we're no longer in the one mind. We're now gone out of our minds. Apparently our minds are in a body, and apparently we're living in a separated world where we've gone out of our minds. Look, we're out of our minds. We're in our bodies, apparently. And it's saying, but this mechanism that the ego's created to convince us that it's right, that we really are human, that we really are separate, is the way that you undo it. That's the genius of the course. Because he's saying, look, as the stuff comes up, as you get the resistance, that's your opportunity to see the ego's thought system being revealed. It's showing you the hatred. It's showing you the fear. It's showing you the guilt. It's coming up for you. It's in your life. And now you have the choice. Now you have the choice of whether to go, okay, I'm going to listen to this voice and I'm going to go back into that fear and that contracted space, or I'm going to listen to the voice of the Holy Spirit and Jesus and say, let this go, right? Let this go. Forgive this. Because it's not real. The sin, the guilt, the fear, the hatred, the attack, all of it. It's one idea of separation. It all comes down to one single idea, which is false. And so by letting go of all these elements of it, systematically, piece by piece, as they show up, eventually, if you keep doing that, the ego is gonna not be there. It's gonna just have dissolved, because those ideas, those thoughts, and the emotions were never real. And so once you've done that and you've unpicked all the ego, all the bits of the ego, all that's left is love. All that's left is this underlying sense of peace, of happiness, of joy, what the Course would call, I'm just checking if she was trying to join us, but she hasn't. So just Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not actually a difficult teaching conceptually, but it's difficult to live it because you're living in a world pretty much miscreated by the ego. So now you're trying to live in an opposite way, trying to live from a thought system that goes completely contrary to how the world operates and how most people think and operate. And obviously you're going to get resistance. You're going to get people saying, "Are you crazy? What are you doing?" And it can feel quite lonely. It's like, well, although there's only oneness, I feel like I'm coming up against all this resistance all the time. Which, is why we have these groups and discussions, because it's a meeting of minds, like-minded people can get together and go, okay, actually we're not all crazy. We share this idea that only love is real. And that's really all Marianne Williamson's saying. Right? Only love is real. That is a massive metaphysical statement. Only love is real means that nothing else is real. Therefore, none of this stuff, none of the separation that you see around you is real. It collapses the whole dream. So he's not holding back at all. He's just saying, look, only love is real. Only this will work. And sooner or later, eventually you will have to choose this because the pain will become too much.
So it's a required course. This is in the book. Only the time you take is up to you.
Yeah. I'll read the introduction and then we'll do section 3. So this is a Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. So free will does not mean you can. So look, he's saying the curriculum is set. Love is, you can't undo love. You can try as hard as you want. Truth is truth, love is love, it will always be there. So the curriculum is established. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. Okay, so our free will is, well, we can choose what we want to learn. How fast we want to learn. Some people want to learn very slowly. They want to come back here over and over and over again. Do it many, many lifetimes. Or you could choose to do it quickly. You could choose to go, okay, if I study this course, this is the fast track. If I study this course in this lifetime and I really apply it, then that's my way out. I can get out of the dream, basically. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. Okay, so saying I can't really teach you this. It's there. It's impossible to teach what actually transcends learning. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. Okay, so he's saying the sole goal of this is to help you to remove these blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is fear, anger, guilt, sin, hatred, all these ego emotions, because those are what stop you from feeling love. So kind of logical, there's a block, so take it away, remove it. And that's what forgiveness does. That's what this is all about, is letting go of those blocks. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. So he does this a lot. He's saying, right, apparently in this domain, in this dimension, there's an opposite. Opposite of love is fear, apparently. But actually what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. Okay, so that resolves the paradox. That transcends it. You go, whoop, to another level, and you go, actually, there is no fear. Actually, there is no opposite to love. Actually, that's all there really is. That's all I want to know. That's all I want to believe in. And so you raise your awareness up to the level of the spirit from the body level. And the Course is always trying to get us to do that. Right? You think you're here, you think you're in duality, and then whoop, raise you up to go, actually, it's not real. So whatever fear and whatever manifestations of fear you're seeing in this world, you can always look at them and go, it's not real. It's as simple as that. It's not real. But it takes a lot of mental discipline. Okay, so this isn't real. Okay, so what is that really saying then? If you really go down the track, it's saying, well, then I can't be real. I can't be a separate person perceiving this because none of it's real. So the idea of perception and something other than me that I can perceive is part of separation. So now I have to deconstruct my identity of being a separate human being, of being in a body, living a life that I think is separate, with a separate name and identity and families and special relations, all that stuff. You see what I mean? Because you can't do this without going there, without the mind going, okay, well, if it's all unreal, then it must all be unreal. I can't make exceptions. I can't go, oh, well, that part's real. The lovely parts, this is all real. But actually the horrible parts are unreal. It can't be. It's either real or it's unreal. And that's really all he's trying to train our mind to see. And then he says, this course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. And really, that is the summary of it, right? If you can remember that, nothing real can be threatened. Okay, so love can't be threatened, really. It seems to be, but the seeming is not real. Nothing unreal, because nothing unreal exists. The fear and the manifestations of fear and all the stuff that people do from that state of mind are not real. And that's the way you undo all evil. It's not real. Don't respond to it. Don't give it a reality. Don't attack it. Just go, it's not true. It's not real. And if you can maintain that, and you can hold that, you'll stay in the peace of God. Herein lies the peace of God. You'll stay peaceful and happy and loving in a world where that seems to be pretty difficult. You asked me about my journey. I did a lot of reading and learning before I came to the course. But I didn't find anything that really answered the question. It was like, okay, so what's going on here? What's happening? Why am I here? Like, there's other teachings that'll point you to, they start pointing you in this direction. So I'm saying only oneness is real. I read Eckhart Tolle, very useful. Neil Donald Walsh also some interesting ideas, various other. But eventually you're like, so what's the deal? Why are we here? I mean, that's the ultimate question. Who am I? Why does all this apparently exist? Why the human experience? Why the world? Why all the suffering? What's going on? And the Course answers that. The Course says, well, it's an idea. It's a thought system. And you see that played out in the world, and now you have a choice. You can choose to believe it, or you can choose to go, no, I don't believe it. I don't buy it. I believe, that only love is real, which takes you back to your original state, which has always been there. Saying, look, you were always there. You just chose to leave. You've gone on this whole mental trip. You put yourself in a world and a body where apparently all this stuff is real, because that's what you wanted. Because you wanted to run away from God, and you wanted a different experience, and you wanted to be individual and separate. So now you got it, and now we don't like it. We go, I don't like this. Look, people die all the time, and people suffer, and it all seems a bit pointless and meaningless. So then he's saying, well,
I studied with a Theosophical Society before this, and they said that like creations like the moon and the sun and the planets are all very advanced souls. Yeah, there's a lot that I've had to kind of bypass now.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's levels and levels. But ultimately, the Course is taking you to the ultimate level. Because he's saying, look, all these other levels are part of the separation. So if you get caught up in that and trying to understand that, you're not really going anywhere, because it's still the idea of separation. Still, okay, well, there's a separate planet, and there's a separate tree, and the tree's got you can do all of this, and you can a lot of religions have the idea of there's Jonathan. How's it, Jonathan? They have the idea of these saints, and some of them have demigods, and it's all part of the separation. And the Course is not getting us to, he mentions angels once or twice, but really it's about God. It's about saying, raise yourself up to the level of oneness, of the divine, and that's the only true reality. That's the only place where you'll really feel safe. That's, eternal, infinite. It can't go away. So just go there. And you can go there. You don't need anyone. You don't need an intermediary. You don't need anything other than what's inside you already. Just connect with that. Just start to become aware of that. In the process of doing that, you're also going to become aware of the ego, because the ego is the obstacle to that. And so it's a journey into the darkness to go, okay, I've got to face this. I've got to really look at this. And then I've got to undo this. I've got to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. So as it comes up, you just have to remember, okay, I know what's going on here. It can be pretty intense, pretty hectic. I mean, you're facing, the darkest darkness. You're facing like guilt, sin, fear, attack, evil. Look at what happens here. you look at the things that happen in the world that are created or miscreated out of that state of consciousness. They're horrific, horrifying. What's happened? Are you guys Jewish? Yeah, I mean, look at the Holocaust. Probably the most horrific thing. I mean, that human beings could do that to each other. It's horrifying. That happened, apparently. So now, how do you let go of that? This horrifying clinical desire to kill and hurt and maim people just for the sake of, I don't know. I mean, the Nazis were just sick. There was no humanity or compassion. It was just like, oh, we'll just do an experiment and we'll just like see what happens. And these people are just suffering. Now you have to face that. You have to go and look at that and go, okay, so there's a part of my mind that must have created that. It isn't easy. Because we want to go and we want to just go, oh, well, they were evil. Hitler was evil and the Nazis were evil and it's them. It's like, there's a great quote. I remember one Jewish guy had a huge issue with me. He said, because I sent it out on one of my daily quotes, and he said, the quote was, if you can't forgive Hitler, you can't forgive at all. It's true. If you can't forgive that, I mean, he's the epitome of evil. So what a great lesson. You can't let that go. Then what do? You make evil real. Then you perpetuate it. Then you're part of the problem, not part of the solution. And obviously that goes. A lot of Jews would go, oh, can't ever forgive the Holocaust. We'll never forget. But unless you do, the evil remains. It remains in your mind. It remains as this horrible block, this horrifying reminder of the ego and everything the ego can do and all the evil of the world and so on. And the more you dwell on that, the more you dwell on the past, the more that, it just perpetuates it. So the Course is saying this is the only way. The only way you're ever going to get out of this insane, vicious, mad thought system of the ego is by letting go, by forgiving. By letting these blocks go. And letting go means letting go. It doesn't mean that you hold on to some of it. It's like it's a total letting go. So it isn't easy. I mean, this Course is.
My English is very bad, and I'm even afraid to ask the question.
Please ask.
But you know what? If you will let go anything, then your ego is alone. Love not always come to you. I love lots of things, but love temporarily in the life. If it's love between men and women, you mean, or love for everything.
Yeah, so there's different kinds of love. The Course says ultimately only the love of God is real. So the love that we experience here, so the love for your husband or your children or your dog or nature.
But what is, even in the small family, maybe I'm sorry, I can't say what I want, what is there, but simply, your family is part of family. You have few people there, right?
Yeah.
One, you love, you can give your life to them. Other one, you don't love.
Yeah.
And so, then what to do in that family?
Well, so what the Course is saying is this a special love? So he's got a number of chapters on special relationships and special love, which is the ego's answer to divine love. It's saying, but if you love that person specially, that'll give you something. Apparently, you love your wife, you love your children, and the ego gives you these special relationships. You love them more than other people because that's what you're supposed to do. Most people would say, well, how can you love your wife? How can you love everyone as much as your wife? Or as much as your son, because they're your special people. And the Course is asking us to transcend that, because that special love is going to hurt us ultimately. If you look at that, look how much pain and suffering and drama happens in special relationships. It's a minefield for the ego. Right? So now I love you specially, and I think you the most special person, and you're going to make me happy. And then the person goes, right, they're not going to behave as you want, as you expect them to. They're going to be nasty to you. They're going to leave you. They're going to die on you. God, people, stuff happens. And then you bereft because you loved them specially, and now you're apparently without love. So it's a setup. So it's a classic setup. It's saying, look, now all that's doing is perpetuating your separate identity because you have special people who love you. And so I'm very special. And then once you really hooked into the game, the ego's going to come and go, right, now I'm going to take some of it away. Because if I take some of it away, I know that you're going to get angry, you're going to get upset, you're going to feel guilty, you're going to be fearful. and then I'm in business. That's its identity. It wants you to experience those emotions, those feelings and emotions. That's how it continues its sick existence.
But also, can't you say that love that you're talking about needs to be uncovered? It's something in you.
Yeah.
Whereas the relationships are the expression of that.
Yeah.
So if you are connected to that place within you, yes, at all times, no matter what is happening around you, then you already in it more.
Well, the Course talks about a holy relationship. So he's always giving us an alternative. He's saying, look, yeah, you've been set up for special relationships. You're born into them. You're born into families. You know, that's the way of the world. So you can't just undo your special relationships. But what you can do is you can choose to see them differently, and you can behave a lot differently. So instead of this kind of specialness and feeling like, oh, you know, I mean, the more attached you get to someone specially, the more fearful you are that, you know, you're going to be hurt, because chances are they might turn around and go, actually, I don't love you anymore, or I leave you, or I die, or, you know.
This is my son overseas. He was like that. And now since he's got married, and
but there's a lesson in that.
I don't know what it is, but he's just.
Well, he's gone into another special relationship, and probably his wife doesn't like you as competition, and so. And
well, a lot of people have said that, but when she now realized he's not communicating, but she's communicating instead, which is wonderful.
You know, a little bit difficult to assimilate together. That knowledge, when I listen, I am all there. But when you're going back to life, it comes to complications, you know, very big complications.
Because you feel the friction, and it's like, this isn't an easy thing to
and that's
do.
going on every second. If you're alive, and what you're saying, you know what, it seems like person with his ego, he must love only his ego. I don't know, in Russian they said egoism. Actually, you don't love anyone, you love only yourself. Is it right? No.
Yeah, so, you know,
right.
the ego,
close to this.
The ego is incapable of true love, because true love destroys it. So it can't go into true divine oneness, because it ceases to exist there. So what it will do is it will go, okay, well, I'll create this other version, a special version of love, where I can still exist. So it's me and my special people, and I love you specially. But God forbid you should not meet my expectations, because then I'm not going to love you. It's all very conditional. Right? I love you as long as you're playing the game, but then the setup is, you know, at some point they're going to go, oh, they're going to do something that, you know, you don't like, and then the ego's justified and getting angry, saying, how dare you do that to me? I thought you loved me. Now you've betrayed me.
Yeah.
Now I'm entitled to get angry. Now I'm justified in being a victim, and it loves that, because now it creates more separation.
No problems with that.
And so you just got to look at it, and you see the game, and you go, that's crazy. It's mad. When you really start to look at it, when you shine the light of truth on it, it falls apart. You go, this doesn't hold. The human experience and all the stuff that we do here, when you compare it to transcendent divine love that you could have, perfect peace, perfect joy, perfect bliss for all eternity, well, why would you choose this? And that's really what he's saying. Why would you choose this? It was a bad choice. It was a mad idea. And so you can choose again. You can choose love instead.
Reincarnating into this again.
Well, you don't have to. So the Course is saying, look, you chose to come here. The only reason you're here is because you still have sin and guilt and fear and the ego. If you can use this life constructively to undo all of that, you don't have to come back. There's no obligation. You weren't put here. People say you're put here. No, you weren't put here. You chose to come here. God didn't put you here. In fact, God had nothing to do with any of this. That's what the Course is saying. God had nothing to do with an insane world. Why would God put you in a place where you're constantly going to be tempted, tormented, frustrated, and eventually suffer and then die? Like, what the hell? Why would a loving God do that? It doesn't make sense. And so that's you know, the Course is just calling a spade a spade. He's saying, look, it doesn't make sense. Your dream is mad. The illusion is mad. The ego is mad. And the only way out is to let go of the ego, of that idea, that thought system, because you can do that. It's in your mind. It's not out there. You see it projected out. You see it manifested. But actually, it's in you. It's in your own mind. So you have the power to undo that by simply not thinking those thoughts and not feeling those feelings. So it's always bringing it back to yourself. It's okay, so how am I thinking and feeling about this? And if I'm thinking and feeling in an egoic way, then I'm not going to be very happy. I'm going to feel guilty, I'm going to feel upset, I'm going to feel frustrated, angry, and all those things. And like, those emotions will come up when you're doing this, without a doubt, because they have to.
Yeah.
But now you've got a course that is absolutely rocks. It's just saying, let it go. None of this is real. It doesn't compromise once. None of this is real. Only the truth is real. Only love is real. That's what you really want. And so really, this is just, your higher self, the voice of your spirit or your higher self, just speaking to you and saying, remember where you came from. Remember what you really are. You are that transcendent, perfect oneness, that perfect love. You've forgotten it, but you can remember it. And you can remember it here, even when you're in a body, even when you're in a world, even amongst all these difficulties that you're going to experience. In fact, that's the only way. That's how you learn your lessons. It's when you get the resistance, and you get the ego coming up, and you feel that separation, you feel the anger, you feel the guilt. And now you've got the chance to go, okay, but I can look at this, and I can shine there's this other awareness, which I'm starting to develop, that's going, okay, I can experience these, but there's something else that is beyond this. And the more you go into that something else, that higher awareness, the more these things, you look at them and you go, well, why do I want to feel that? Why do I want to spin myself around in an illusion of sin and guilt and fear and attack and hatred and project that out? And it's mad, it's crazy. Why would I want to be stupid and crazy? I don't, when I could just let it go and I could restore my mind to love. And so over and over and over again, we make that choice. Over and over, and that choice is the miracle. That's why it's called the Course in Miracles. He's saying, miracles are when you make the right choice, when you choose to let it go, when you choose to forgive, and often things kind of work out a lot better. There's no guarantees. I'm not pretending the world's suddenly going to all be roses. But dogs, right? Come on, dogs, come.
No, I'm not afraid.
No.
Oh, wait. Oh, he was great.
Very
Very interesting, because animals resonate with this energy. So.
Why dogs are coming to me all the time? I don't know.
Because if you've got a nice energy, they feel that, and they want to be close to that. Huh?
Can I bring my dog?
Yeah. Okay, so shall we read this passage?
Yeah. But I'm just going to make some notes on my phone. Is that all right?
Please, yeah.
You want to come here?
I've got another. If you want to read this, like you take the book.
No,
I'll read
I'm
my tablet.
fine. I will hear. It's better.
You're okay. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
You want to share it?
My internet doesn't work today. There's even iPhone doesn't work. That's why I couldn't bring.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. So atonement and miracles. The way we do this, we'll just read a paragraph, and then just say what struck you in the paragraph as being particularly meaningful, and then if you want to discuss anything, we can about each paragraph. So I'll start. So it's section 3. Yeah, there we go. First paragraph, section 3. Yeah, atonement and miracles. Got it. Okay, so I am in charge of the process of atonement, which I undertook to begin. When you offer a miracle to any of my brothers, you do it to yourself and me. The reason you come before me is that I do not need miracles for my own atonement, but I stand at the end in case you fail temporarily. My part in the atonement is the cancelling out of all errors that you could not otherwise correct. When you have been restored to the recognition of your original state, you naturally become part of the atonement yourself. As you share my unwillingness to accept error in yourself and others, you must join the great crusade to correct it. Listen to my voice, learn to undo error, and act to correct it. Power to work miracles belongs to you. I will provide the opportunities to do them, but you must be ready and willing. Doing them will bring conviction in the ability, because conviction comes through accomplishment. The ability is the potential, The achievement is its expression. And the atonement, which is the natural profession of the children of God, is the purpose.
To back down atonement means at one
Yeah.
with God.
So for me, the sentence stands out as the last one. The ability is the potential. Achievement is its expression. And the atonement, which is the natural profession of the children of God, is the purpose.
Would you say atonement and connection is the same?
Yeah, at one-ment. So atonement means this movement towards oneness. So atonement is another way of saying I love. That I'm choosing to be at one with you rather than separate from you. Choosing to perceive you as being as I am, as the same as me rather than separate. If you think about how fundamentally profound that is. You know, I look at you from this level, from the human level, I'm male, you female. You're different age, got a different background, you know, all these things that are trying to separate us. It completely transcends that. So if I look at you through the eyes of the atonement, I go, we're the same. There's only one life, there's only one source, there's only one spirit. And we are both that. Everything else is illusion, everything else is false, everything else is a construct designed by our ego to keep us separate. If I perceive you as a body, then I'm perceiving you as separate. And then we see the effects of that, and you know, in human relationships, it's disastrous. You perceive someone as separate from you, well then you're justified in attacking them, aren't you? Because they're not you. You realize that you're just attacking yourself. Then you go, well, that's a pretty stupid thing to do. And it's all just an idea. It's that crazy. It's just an idea. It's just this idea that we can be one, that there's only one life source. And there actually really can't be anything else. How can there be more than one source of life? And that's what the Course is pointing us to. It's saying, look, there's only one true source. The other source is false. The other source is made up. It's an invention of the mind. It's not real. The identity is not real. And so your only way out of this horrible dilemma you put yourself in is to choose what's true and let go of what's false. Right. So any questions about that particular?
So that's changed my perception of the word atonement completely.
Yeah. At one-ment.
I didn't. I always related it in a very different way. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so often in the traditional teachings, I say traditional Christian, Catholic, you know, they'll talk about atonement, and that's the idea that you've sinned.
No, but it's the same in the Jewish.
Yeah, atonement.
They have
Thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's related to the idea of sin and guilt.
I'm so confused.
It's return.
Oh, so return actually means what you're saying.
Yeah, return to oneness.
Return actually is the right word. Thank you. Okay.
At one-ment. So it's a nice way of saying it, at one-ment, because if I'm choosing to be at one, it tells me what I'm doing. Are you drunk?
Oh, good. Is that what you left behind?
No, I saw that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Did
you leave it behind last time?
Yeah.
But you can use it, I don't sleep today.
Any questions about that paragraph? No?
No.
Do you want to read the next one?
Heaven and earth shall pass away means that they will not continue to exist as separate states. My word, which is the resurrection and the life, shall not pass away because life is eternal. You are the work of God, and his work is holy, lovable, and wholly loving. This is how a man must think of himself in his heart, because this is what it is, what he is.
And what sentence stood out for you? Which sentence stood out for you then?
My word, which is the resurrection and the life, shall not pass away because life is eternal. There's no such thing as death, because love is eternal, whereas the ego is temporary.
Yeah.
Love is.
Yeah.
But isn't your connection to source eternal, will always be, whether you really
you can't
alive
die.
or dead?
Yeah.
You cannot die.
In
Impossible.
human terms.
So your body can die.
Yeah.
But the body was never real in the first place, which is what he's saying. But you know, we've been coming here hundreds, thousands of times. right? Choose another body, another life, another identity, do that, die, come back. The mind can't die. Your mind cannot die. That's what he's saying.
But can I ask something about that? Why people said old soul and new and young soul? Why they said like that?
Well, so some people have had more lifetimes than others, basically.
Yes, that I understand.
You come a few more times, and then I suppose, you know, you've been here enough times, you start to sort of wise up a bit.
Come and go, yeah? Like that.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's also the ego saying that, because we don't know.
But remember, the Course is taking us beyond the idea of soul. He doesn't really use the word soul. He uses the word spirit.
Ah, spirit, yes.
So he's saying, look, beyond all of this, beyond like the idea of an individual soul is the one life, the one spirit that gives us all life.
Yeah.
And so he's always trying to take us up to that level of understanding, because that's God, that's oneness, that's where eternal salvation lies.